Hello viewers and welcome to our second Let's Play of the pre-release version of Dominions for Thrones of Ascension. So, we've already done one Let's Play and we've covered kind of the basics of the game inside a short match, but because there's a ton of content inside this game, and I feel like this game really deserves a long Let's Play, we're going to be doing another round, and with that said, let's get on into the map generation. Let's start playing the game. So, just to kind of recap on what the game is and how it essentially goes is that in the world of Dominions 4, you essentially play as a demigod who leads a nation, and what had happened inside the world was that the great omniscience present there has mysteriously disappeared. So now all of the different demigods inside the world have essentially started to claim themselves as the next almighty one. So that sets up for the conflict of the Ascension Wars, which is essentially what is going on inside the game. So the first choice that we have to make, as always, before we start playing the game is picking out our era. We're going to be playing inside the Middle Ages, and what this essentially describes is what factions are available inside your playthrough and what their lineup of units will be. We're going to switch the AI inside the game to the difficult AI system. It's one of those games where it's like you have the easy setting, the normal setting, and then the hard setting, then the difficult setting, and then the impossible setting and whatnot. So we're going to be doing that just so that we can have a more challenging game, and then now we get to the fun part of picking out a nation and a demigod to go along with that. I've already picked out the one that we're going to be playing as. We are going to go with Sceleria here, the Reformed Empire, and these guys are based upon the Roman legions, and they also have access to death magic, so we're going to be seeing a lot of necromancy and whatnot going on. So, how the Aegis system works is that in every single age the factions change in some way or another. Like, for example, unit casts might be switched around, or maybe different types of magic are introduced to the different factions. So, the storyline behind this faction is that the Empire of Ermor, which is actually a playable faction inside the early age and the middle age, is essentially falling apart. Sceleria is a faction that embraces the same ideas at the heart of the Empire of Ermor, which was death magic, and they have adopted similar techniques in using the Roman system of legionnaires, and essentially this faction and the faction that they broke off of are both factions very heavily inspired by the Romans. So what essentially that leads up to is that now that we picked out a faction, we essentially choose a demigod. And I know I said that essentially you would imagine that you pick out your demigod first and then kind of pick out the faction, but what you typically want to do is that you want to choose a demigod that actually complements your faction really nicely. So because we have a focus on death magic and we have a focus on a little bit of astral magic, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on, we're going to go with the demigod template of the Prince of Death. So what this is going to do is that it's going to essentially set up this guy as our demigod, and he has a wide variety of different traits that he has going along, and he also has some base stats with which we are then able to essentially upgrade. So we're going to select him out of this list of other templates, and we're going to do a few things here. So this is essentially a perk system. You can use design points to buff up your demigod, and you can essentially put debuffs on him to gain some more design points if you so wish to. I'm going to go with a build like this. So our Prince of Death automatically starts off with 3 levels in death magic and nothing in the other schools of magic, and I'm essentially going to be buffing him up to 5 death magic and 2 astral magic for now. So later on we can change these values, so it's not really that big of a deal, but right now I'm just trying to pick something that really complements a faction. Down below here, essentially you have two aspects of the game that you do have to manage really well. You have your military conquests, which is obviously, you know, using units, fighting other factions, and doing whatnot. But back at home, you essentially have your religious influence that you had to worry about in the form of your dominion. The candle here just kind of represents the strength of our religion, so it makes it easier to take over provinces and influence people, so that's kind of why we're going to have this at 6. We're also going to have 3 productivity, so if you have a strong influence in a particular region, you can grant certain benefits and things to that province. So because we have a high productivity here, every single province that we essentially conquer and then influence with our dominion is going to have a high income and a high resource generation, which is going to be rather nice, and you can essentially switch these from -1 to +1 and whatnot, so then you can get more design points and less design points. The other thing that you can do on the screen is that you can essentially imprison your demigod, so he will essentially come into the game later on, although if you choose to imprison your demigod, you can make him really strong early inside, or you can make him really strong so that when he comes in, you'll have this super powerful being. Just a few things over here. I mean, usually some people set luck in the negatives, so you have more events, more bad events, but you have more design points. For some factions, you can set the magic/drain to negative, which will decrease your research ability, and obviously if you go the opposite way, you get more research. The other two are Order and Turmoil, kind of self-explanatory, increases your income and decreases the chances of events, and Growth/Death, once again increases your income and some other things. So I think we've covered this screen, so let's just get onto the game. We're going to let the AI just kind of where the game randomized the name for our demigod. And the other thing that we're going to be doing here is we're going to be lowering the amounts of thrones that we need to claim to win. So how you essentially win this game is that you have, well, in Dominions 3 you had 2 options really. You could either conquer everybody militarily, so destroying all of their forts and essentially taking over all their provinces, or alternatively, if you have enough priests and enough religious influence, you could actually essentially wipe off the other demigods by spreading your religion through your provinces, so you can you do have to fight your opponents either way in some cases, but if you have a strong influence, you can essentially conquer your enemies until they only have their stronghold provinces, and then essentially just use your religious influence to blitz those instead of you know, fighting a ton of enemy forces really. So you can also do that. And well, inside Dominions 4, you have the option to essentially take the Thrones of Ascension, which are located on a map with these yellow/orange throne icons, and you can essentially claim them, and if you claim enough of them, as dictated by what you select inside the game options, you can essentially win the game like that too. What Dominions 3 set up for was that, like, you could there's quite a elaborate multiplayer metagame for this game. If you played that, essentially what would happen is that the game starts off as a free-for-all, and then obviously you can do essentially whatever you want. You can form alliances and pacts with the diplomacy system, but nothing was, like, you know, in stone, right? So, like, either way, at the end of the game, you're going to have, like, one guy with a super powerful force and another guy with another super powerful force, and either way it would essentially result into a big fight, right? So now that they have the Thrones of Ascension, I mean, you can finish off games a little faster if you prefer to do that, which is rather nice. So anyways, let's jump on in here and let's start essentially working our way towards that victory. So we start off inside this province right here. You'll see that we have the little candle here thing again, and the little flag inside the background, and those two things represent military control and our dominions' influence. It's at the start of the game, so obviously we have very little of either of those. With that said, we need to do 2 things first and foremost. We need to assign research, and we need to start conquering the nearby lands. So how essentially you do things inside the game is that you have a list of different commanders on the side of the screen here, and without these commanders you can do absolutely nothing. apart from like recruit units. And even at that, I mean, if you recruit the units, you need the commanders, such as our Centurion over here, which is a leader commander. So he's going to essentially rally up the troops and move them. He can move up to 40 troops, and he can lead up to 2 squads. So he's kind of there for that. We have Lemuric over here, which is our scouting unit. He's a stealthy type of guy who just goes to provinces and tells us what is there. But we don't really have a lot of uses for him right now, so we're going to make him a prophet, which is going to turn him into a scout/priest hybrid, so he'll be able to spread our influence around, our dominion around. And what that is going to do is that he's essentially going to be this stealthy priest, so he can effectively enter all of these tiles undetected, so he's not going to fight anybody there, and he's going to spread his dominion around there. So what we can do is that we can actually infiltrate, say, a enemy's fortress, which is this little 2 towers icon thing on the map, and instead of sieging this building, we can just spread our religion to it. And then if the enemy, say, only has 1 province inside the game, and we really don't want to fight like a stack of 300 guys, we can essentially just whittle down his dominion to nothing and win the game like that, instead of just taking out a final fortress type of thing. The other thing that we're going to do is that we're going to get our Prince of Death here to start researching, so he's essentially going to be unlocking new magical spells for us. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 schools of magic. Generally speaking, you're only going to be dealing with 6, because not all factions use blood magic. What I think we will be doing a lot of research into is the school of magic that is enchantments, which really come in handy in terms of death magic, simply because you have a lot of skills that utilize death magic. So we're going to get a few levels of that real fast. So you research to unlock different levels of magic, and as you unlock different levels of magic, you essentially get more and more spells available to you. So that's kind of that. We're going to put that on essentially cruise control, and we will then focus on the military goal of conquering these provinces. So at the start of the game, most of the map tiles, most of the provinces here are going to be neutral, so they have this little white banner. This essentially means that they're controlled by an independent group of people. They're essentially the local town folk and whatnot, and we really had to conquer them first. So we're going to need a bigger military force. How the recruitment panel here works is that you can recruit commanders on the top here, and then units on the bottom here. Commanders you can only recruit 1 at a time. Units you can recruit as many as you essentially have the capability for. We're going to be needing a few of these, I really suck at these pronunciations, but Thaumaturgs, and these are essentially our priest mages, which are people who are going to be essentially spreading our dominion around, and who will later become our offensive magic casters. So we're going to recruit 1 of them every single turn, simply because you can only recruit 1 commander every turn, and that being said, you obviously want to keep commanders being constantly recruited. Down here, we have a large selection of different units to recruit. There's quite a little bit of stats crouching inside the game, so I'm only going to be going over the very essential things. You have your standard lineup of units here, and these are effectively your regular legionnaire troopers. They're pretty much average in every single way, with the exception that they have fairly high protection, so they're not very easy to just kind of wipe out. We're going to be getting quite a lot of these Velites over here, which are basic infantry, and we are also going to be grabbing some of these Shadow style guys, which are these ethereal, they're essentially ghost fighters. And they are really, really useful because they can't actually be hit by normal weapons really easily. So we're going to be getting some of those guys as well. And we're going to end the first turn here, and some things are going to happen listed inside the messages log. For the most part, it's just people making their scouts profits, so we're not going to pay any attention to that. And then we get a nice little intel briefing here. So like I said, there are various different groups of independents on the map that we have to deal with. Our Centurion here, over here, Demigod, can lead up to 40 troops. So let's get some of these troops that we have essentially built, and we're going to assign them to his 2 squads right here. How the battle system works inside the game is that for our commanders, we can essentially issue 5 different commands to them at the very beginning of the game. And we can essentially issue formation orders for our troops, which is essentially position them onto the battlefield, and then give them 1 generic order, such as wait 2 turns and then attack, or keep distance and fire ranged bows at them, or something like that. So that's essentially how that system goes. He is essentially, well, he's a general commander, and all he is he's really just leading basic troops right now, so I'm just going to order him to try to smash into a province and get rid of the barbarians over there for us. Our demigod here, the Prince of Death, he can lead specialty troops, so we're going to get him to lead some of those Shadow of the Styles, which are magical units, and we're going to bring those up here to handle these guys. Our Centurion over here, he can only lead basic normal units, so unfortunately he is unable to lead some of the more advanced and more powerful stuff, but then again we have these mages and our demigod, of course, to do that for him. So with that done, I mean, all we have to do is just issue a few more orders. I'm going to get that priest that we've essentially built to start researching, and I'm going to get our guys to start expanding our faction, and I'm also going to get our prophet to move forward, scout out locations, and also spread our dominion. And as you may have noticed, our dominion has increased as there are more white candles inside the nearby provinces. And I have a feeling that's pretty much that. So we'll end the turn and see what happens during the battles. So yeah, we should have fought 2 battles. Did we win this one? No. Okay, fair enough. So it looks like we won 1 battle and we lost the other. So let's view both of these. So yeah, we've given a few orders for our commanders here. We've given Centurions, is a little legion over here to start attacking some of these barbarians. And the battle will just kind of play out like this. And it looks like it was a fairly easy battle for our guys. We were able to rout these barbarian guys really easily, which is good. And in our second battle here, our demigod with his little force was unfortunately unable to kill off all of these tribesmen. The reason behind that I really don't know, so let's take a look at this. Oh, maybe it's because we're taking a lot of hits on our demigod or something like that. I see. What happened was that the it looks like our troops were routed over there, unfortunately. So yeah, that's rather unfortunate, but oh well. I mean, things worked out, so in this province anyways, so that should be fine. How the combat system works inside the game is that every single troop that you have has a large variety of different stats, and then he has his armor and weapons, which then have even more stats. So, taking a look at our troops right here, the Vilite, which is essentially our basic trooper. He has a value of 10 for hit points and 10 for strength and whatnot. Generally speaking, for humanoids, 10 is average, so he's pretty good on all fronts. He has slightly better morale than usual, but below average armor, which is fine, seeing as how they're fairly cheap. The good thing about these guys is that they have both a spear-based weapon and a javelin-based weapon. Both of these weapons can pierce armor, so they do a little bit more damage to armored guys than they usually do, and because his spear is a lengthy weapon, he can parry attacks really easily. So what he can do is that in conjunction with his defense skill and the length of his weapon, he can effectively block people with shorter length weapons with ease, and he has actually quite a high defense skill here, so he should be able to block regular people with ease too. He also has a tower shield, which helps, obviously. Yeah, really high parry skill on that. He also gets 2 javelins, which he can then throw early inside the battle to, add a little bit more oomph to his attacks, which is nice. And in the meantime, we'll just continue recruiting guys and doing whatnot. Oh, and we've also located a magical site inside our provinces. Later inside the game, magical sites will be very important, but for now, they are not so important. Magical sites essentially provide us with a wide variety of benefits as we discover them. Some you'll find like this, where as soon as you conquer the place, you'll know about them, but some you actually have to search for them. Generally speaking, the main purpose of them is to generate magical gems, which are listed inside the middle of my HUD here. And essentially these gems are used to cast really powerful spells or summon magical beings into the world, and they also have a few other uses, such as generating magical equipment for our guys, and that will be rather helpful later on. But for now, it's not really that big of a deal. One of the things that we should be doing later on inside the game is that because we've chosen the Prince of Death as our commander here, we should get a lot of magical armaments for him and equip him with those. Because right now, or rather, how it works is that you can improve upon your base stats here, and you can improve upon essentially every single thing about your commanders with magical items, which can be equipped into these slots right here. Right now, I have a feeling the reason the Prince of Death lost that battle was because he's not very well equipped right now. He only has his fists as his weapon, although they do a lot of damage. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of protection either, bear in mind. So he's not going to be all that useful apart from being a magical caster for now. And because we don't have a lot of research in magic, he doesn't necessarily have a lot of powerful spells to cast, right? So that's one thing that we had to keep in mind. I'm going to get a scout here to do some more scouting, and I am contemplating attacking this tile of about 30 Amazons and Pegasus Riders. Those guys might be a little tough, though. So with that said, we're actually, yeah, I'll just get these guys to advance over here. Okay, I think I'll get the Prince of Death to join him in battle, so he'll hopefully be a little bit more help there. What we're going to have to do is that we're going to have to make some magical items to equip him with, likewise using those gems in a little bit. But for now, let's just finish off the turn and see what happens next. So yeah, a battle's going to happen, and we should be able to steamroll these guys. From the looks of the battle report, we did steamroll them. I mean, the main premise for choosing the Prince of Death is that because he can generate these shadows over here, he's effectively able to fight a mini war of it by himself, provided that he has the right equipment and magical spells for it. Because what these shades or shadows do is that they are ethereal beings, so they have this trait called ethereal, making them essentially, well, they're essentially ghosts, and they are very, very hard to hit with non-magical weapons. So it is the equivalent of having like a really high defense skill against non-magical attacks again. The purpose of them is mainly to just to use their little spell here called Paralyze, which essentially stuns a target. And because he has quite a lot of them here, he can essentially stun a force of about 30 men by keeping them busy with his shadows over here. And as soon as we equip him with some area of effect spells and some deadlier weapons, he should be able to just kind of use his shadows as cannon fodder and either cast spells to eliminate a lot of guys or dish out damage with like some sort of flame-based weapon. So, well, at least that's an easy battle there. Looks like we've gained 1 level inside enchantments, so we have access to these spells now. Some of the notable ones is Animate the Dead and Animate Skeleton, which will allow our death mages to cast those spells, effectively raising the dead, right? Adding a few guys to our numbers. How the magical system works is that you first and foremost need to unlock the spell from here. And then after that, you essentially need a mage with the suitable magic level to cast the spell. So for example, Reanimation here, it's a level 1 death spell, so we're going to have to go back to the campaign map, find a commander or a mage or priest, such as this guy, Remus, which has level 1 death mage, and he should be able to cast that without a problem. So with that said here, ooh, It's a lot of different troops. With that said, what I think I'll do is that I'll get our commander here to fly back, and next turn, what I want to do is that I want to take this province over. So let's do that. Actually, no, we can mount an attack like that, and then we should be able to win that. I'm just trying to figure out what would be the best way to effectively take these tiles from the local defenders, because some of these militiamen or some of these independents are fairly strong. We're mainly fighting heavy infantry inside this tile, and those guys do quite a lot of damage and they have decent protection, so this will be a little bit of a harder fight. The fish people over here, even though they have more of them, they are generally pretty weak in terms of the fact that they don't have a lot of protection, so we should be able to take those guys down really easily. The horse tribe people over here, they are they're alright, they're average. The militiamen over here with the spears and whatnot, they're pretty easy. And the wolf tribe people here are said to be pretty easy, although we did lose that fight. But then again, we only had like about 4 units rather, that could actually do damage, so maybe it was that. Let's actually get one of our priests to join in onto this battle, and let's just issue him some orders and see what he can do to just kind of help things out. See if he can command more troops, because I'd rather have him onto the battlefield commanding a fairly sizable amount of troops. Get him to command. Can we mix squads like this? Yes, we'll get him to command 10 guys, and he'll bring some of the more magical beings into the battle. But the important thing I want him to do is that we can essentially choose a few spells for him to cast. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get him to cast Twist Fate first and foremost, and then Sermon of Courage, and then Blessing. So what he's going to do here is that he's going to first and foremost make sure that he is safe. He's going to cast Twist Fate, which is going to make it so that the first successful strike on him will be protected by this spell. So, for example, if an arrow comes his way and hits him, this spell will essentially act like a shield, making it like a little invulnerability barrier there, and that's to just kind of protect him from, like, you know, a lucky shot from the enemy. And then we're going to use this Sermon of Courage prayer, because he is a priest. He can cast these spells inside the divinity category, which are automatically unlocked. That's going to just increase our morale. You may have noticed that the troops that he leads automatically gain this morale penalty, so that's going to kind of compensate for that. But another thing that he's going to do is that he's going to cast a Blessing, which is going to make sure that our Shadow Vestal people, because they are sacred units, they can receive blessings from our god, and that's going to make it so that they have a little more offensive power, I think, because we have chosen Death Magic and Astral Magic. We do grant some sort of benefit to our troops. I'm not sure what it is, because I don't usually play with those two schools of magic, but I know that if you play as a nation if you play as a god that uses fire magic, you can get flaming weapons for your troops, and if you have I think blood magic, you get this damage reflection thing going on. So let's see how this battle goes. Yeah, our guys are going to take their turns. We're going to cast Twist Fate, like I said. He's going to cast Sermon of Courage, there we go. That's going to give our troops all a big morale bonus benefit. And then our troops start the tango. Yeah, so the guys encased in this, the little sprites, which are gray, are paralyzed by our shades, so it cannot move or defend itself. Don't really see that happening a lot inside this battle, simply because it looks like my shades are just kind of running to their rear. But yeah, that happens too, and that can really influence the battle. It looks like what happened was that a random event happened. So random events do happen throughout the game. And what happened was that a evil lord and some troops automatically rose up inside one of our hexes. So unfortunately we did lose control there. What I think I'll do is that I will get our little force here to continue rolling down the troops. And what I want to do is that I want to press to this city, because this city actually generates quite a lot of money, which is then going to be used to purchase more troops. Yeah, that's going to be that. How the money, how the cash works inside this game is that, well, first and foremost, we use resources to. Resources are essentially a type of like industrial capacity, while gold is, well, you know, just gold really. So you can only build as many units as the amount of resources that you get per turn. So we had to kind of balance that out. Generally speaking, you run out of, or you'll run out of resources before you run out of gold. So yeah, that's no worry. Gold is mainly used to, well, first and foremost, buy units, buy commanders. Commanders, some of them cost a lot, like the Grand Tamaturg over here, which costs 320 pieces. But most of it will be going to building new fortresses and whatnot, building new temples and stuff like that. You also have holy points down here, which are used to buy sacred units like these Shadow style people. So they're fairly cheap at 35 gold and 6 resources, mainly because they don't cost a lot of resources. But we only have 6 holy points per turn, so we can only get 6 of them here at least. Next turn, what I think I'll do is that I will get another commander. We'll get a Legatus Legionist right now. And this is essentially a better commander than the Centurion in that he can lead 120 troops versus the Centurion's 40 troops, and in reality there's really no reason we should be buying the Centurion, seeing as how both of these guys cost the same amount of resources, and like 110 gold really isn't all that much. So that's kind of that. Hopefully we win this battle, and then after that I'm going to get the Legatus Legionist to conquer these 2 tiles right here. And then we should be able to siege the city and then secure our own little peninsula here. Looks like the map, there seems to be like a large chunk, a large continent over down here. And I'm going to guess that that is where the majority of the other factions have started in. So let's start the battle here. There's going to be another battle, and these guys should be, yeah, these guys are easy peasy, easy victory. So once again, standard troop deployment for us. We're going to do essentially the same battle order, casting those Sermons of Courage and then a Blessing. And over here, you might have noticed that we were picking off these little fish people fairly easily, and yeah, they're not that great. They have fairly low attack skill and defense skill, and really low protection, so they should be dealt with fairly fast. Although they do have a net, which is interesting, because this weapon is the... Yeah, they can, well, you know, you can catch people with the net, right? And then that'll make them trapped. Well, I mean, most of their nets are being put onto our ethereal units, so that's definitely going to not do anything. And I think I'll just speed through the battle because, yeah, they should rout any minute now. There we go. So yeah, those fish people are really weak. Their warriors actually have decent armor, which is interesting. However, they don't have the net. So yeah, that's kind of that. Nice thing about our little steamrolling force over here is that they do have that. They do have the benefit of having one of those. What do you call it? Or rather, they do have the benefit of having those javelins there. All of our legionnaires here, they're armed with javelins as a sort of secondary weapon, so they have 2 of these per turn per match, and I think I've already talked about this a little bit, but because they have 2 of them per match, what they can effectively do is that against those people with really low protection values, those 2 javelin volleys are essentially going to thin out their ranks really nicely, making it rather easy for us to move forward. And that should take us to the next turn. Did we win both of these battles? Yes, we did. There we go. So let's view these 2, and it looks like we gain 1 level inside one of our research, which is good. So up here, these barbarians, or these deer tribe people, are finally going to die. Yeah, it looks like that they only have archers. We have tower shields. Yeah, because we have tower shields, I mean, it makes it so that we don't really take that much damage from archers, and as you saw there, those 2 volleys of javelins do really help out. We were actually able to slay most of their archers and break them even before our main lines got to them with just those javelins. So they are really, really good at taking down unarmored people like that. Let's check if these people are armored. So these militiamen, they have 5 protection, but the javelin has piercing damage, so it'll negate some of that protection. And they have some of these heavy infantry guys. These guys are going to be a little more of a challenge, simply because they have 14 protection. Over here we have some archers and some commanders and whatnot. So hopefully our ethereal units will tie down these heavy infantrymen because they can't hit them. And the rest of our guys really take out their militiamen or spearmen over there, or whatever the heck units they are. Yeah, you'll see that the little group of heavy infantry there, they're definitely lasting longer than the other group. But because we had our Shadow Vestals and our Shadows over there, they were able to just kind of stall them up and let our guys really just eliminate the other group and then just kind of knock them off just like that. So now we have secured what is effectively this little strip of area, and it looks like we've recruited yet another one of these legatist people. As we conquer more and more territory, how resources work is that when you have a fortress somewhere, the nearby provinces who generate resources will siphon off some of their resources into your fortress. So it's a good idea to just kind of build a fortress every once in a while, once a fair distance away from each other. So we're actually going to be building another fortress inside this city right here. And what this fortress will do is that it'll kind of siphon off resources from the other lands next to it that we own, and that will give us a little more production capability. So that's for the people who are wondering why we can build more and more units here than we were able to before. So I have a feeling that this is a pretty good point to just kind of leave off the video. So we're going to return next time and hopefully press down into the main continent and meet our first AI opponent. So I'll see you guys then. Bye bye.